have to strap themselves in here because this is going to take a little explanation, but I think it's going to make a bit of sense once I get it out. Phoenix and Pelicans, right? So we just had a fantastic game yesterday with Booker dropping 56. And obviously, that kind of closes a chapter of the Pelicans and Suns having this mini rivalry for 3 consecutive games almost. And we had the Zion drama, we had the Chris Paul drama, we had really good narratives building around that. And it got me thinking, the regular season, we constantly say it's a slog, gets a bit boring, there's dry spells, etc., etc. It needs a rejig, right? So I'm going to pitch a rejig. I'm going to pitch a way for us to redo it. And if this ever takes off, I want this video as evidence that I've had an idea. So divisions, we talk about divisions all the time and they don't mean anything, but let's make them mean something. This is what you do for the first section of the season. You only play the people in your division. Keeps the travel low at the beginning of the season. And you're kind of creating a bit of a seeding within your division. Okay? You with me so far?
Go on.
Yep. So let's say in the division you got 1 to 5, right? What we're going to do is we're going to have some mini playoffs in the same conference after we've done some seeding games in the division. Okay. So for about the first 15 to 18 games, you play your division only, right? So you get some real good rivalries, you get consecutive games, you get, a narrative that carries over from game to game. And then they play amongst the conference. All right. So you could do a little bit of the seeding thing. You could do like a bit of a pecking order. And then eventually you will then go to the other conference and you play these kind of games. This mimics up with your mid-season tournament sort of thing. So you actually figure out your division winner early, and that's what carries into that weird playoff seeding that still seems to exist. You get continuity with the games so that hey, like from a ticketing standpoint, hey, I can buy the bundle, I can do the 2 home games for Phoenix, and then I could fly to Los Angeles and do the 2 games for the Lakers. You can do those kind of things, right? From a scouting report thing, it means teams take the games a little bit more seriously because we're all guilty of throwing away a game every season. Orlando beats Boston, but everyone's like, oh, it's just 1 game in the regular season. Well, you want to stop that narrative. You want people to actually have a bit of meaning behind them. And all of this is kind of jostling towards that mid-season tournament. So, hey, you're the mid-season Western Conference representative, right? That goes on to play the Eastern one. It can correspond with the All-Star game. And then you can finish out your seeding. It allows you to also make sure that Christmas Day rolls around and you've actually got good games to watch where you have 2 competitive teams based off their divisions and also 2 teams that maybe necessarily aren't having injury issues, right? And I know that they can do a rejostle the fixture if necessary, but it allows you to kind of organically create a season as time goes on. And you could create some incentives as well. You could have draft picks that get given to teams for performance and that as a way to get that going. Because I know they've talked about salaries for players, but I don't think that's beneficial to teams in the long stand. What do you think?
I think you should have presented this with a whiteboard and your flow charts and your Venn diagrams and whatever else you needed. You don't seem to have shared those resources at this point. So let me try and gather a few things here. We're going to play in division games to start the season to create greater rivalries. Is that the idea? And then you're going to then take it further out and play more conference games and then play the rest of the other teams in the other, areas. Okay. And so the second half of the season, you're going to be all over the place. But the first half of the season, you're going to get to stay at home a little bit more and nice and close to some home cooking. Is that the idea? And the benefit here is for rival games. And
that's the core motivator for this, but it's also about competition, right? So, I was looking at the standings trying to figure out, what do I want to articulate with this? And we look at the West currently, we have the Grizzlies on 19 and 10, we have the Rockets on 9 and 20. If those 2 teams verse each other currently, we expect Memphis to win, but if Memphis lost for any reason, we just naturally assume Rockets caught them on a good night. They've rested some players. These are we get excuses, right? We get justifications for why did this happen on this night? Oh, it was the 4th game in 5 nights, those kind of things. By structuring the season in a competitive way where there's kind of these checkpoints along the way of, hey, I'm trying to win my division right now. or I'm trying to represent my conference right now, or I'm trying to get a really good seeding to then go over to the Eastern Conference and, start off with a fixture that allows me to verse the worst teams. The first seed from the West could figuratively verse 15, 14, and 13 from the East to start their East Coast trip, which is kind of rewarding a good performance because that means, hey, I can probably get 3 straight wins on the road that maybe I wouldn't otherwise because of weird fixturing things. Yes, the element here is because the seeding dictates the fixture, you have different travel arrangements that maybe aren't as pro player as they currently are. But I just feel like after that Phoenix thing, and maybe they're already experimenting with this as well, but after that Phoenix series where, Devin Booker doesn't play those games and then he comes back and he has that big performance, those kind of storylines happening consecutively in different divisions all the time is probably better for the sport, or at least better for the NBA regular season.
I'm going to try and simplify rivalries here. Yeah, I think a rivalry has a few components here that has no relevance to the schedule. And that's sort of what you're sort of alluding to, that you're saying that you could schedule this to greater develop rivalries and obviously such, atmospheres of these sort of games. The first point I think is two teams have to be competitive. Yeah, two teams have to be competitive and they have to be very close to each other in their competitiveness. That's the first point. Two, and there's player only two, you just need to add an ingredient that sparks that competitiveness. And that can be that Zion 360 dunk, or it could be a push in the back, all right, or a hard foul, or it could be a handful of games and that were really close and there was a blowout, and then there's a whole bunch of trash talking at the end of that. Yeah, on social media.
I got to jump in because this is fixture based, right? The Zion dunk, let's say the Zion dunk occurs and then we don't play again until the end of January. Yes, people will bring up the Zion dunk, but it's the classic case of we've removed from it, we have moved on from it. We've had new storylines develop in the last 6 to 8 weeks that we don't need it. The one that comes to mind instantly is the Butler and TJ Warren incident, right? Where they had a bit of a scuffle. Jimmy Butler posted on social media, hey, I've got this date circled, right? And then the date, which is like 2.5 months in advance, rolls around and nothing happens, right? When that chippiness is there and then 48 hours later, we're seeing each other again, you increase the probability of getting that competitive spirit. And then from a competitiveness side, you're talking about those financial incentives for a mid-season tournament, if that's the way the league wants to go. You're talking about a draft capital that enables your team to do something, or a trade exception. Do you not think that Luka currently would play for a trade exception so that potentially his team could actually help him with something? All right, I agree. I could have had a whiteboard for this, and maybe I should map this out as a future take. So I'm gonna revisit this.
I think you should also consider the Nick Basketball League, and
Yeah,
maybe you can try
that's
and
the NBA, right?
Yeah,
That's the NBA.
recruit some
This is
players.
Two Guys with Spare Time. I'm Faz, this is Nick. You're probably a basketball fan like us, so hopefully you can throw us an assist and giving our video a like and subscribing to our channel.
And if you got thoughts, feelings, or even some suggestions, please put them down in the comment section below. And thank you for using your spare time to watch us in our spare time.